Hi, I'd like to continue our history of Maria Marten before her death. We started off her journey that she had been made pregnant by William Corder's brother, but the child had died. And now we continue her story. We now come to another part of Maria's unfortunate history. The connection between her and Thomas Corder having been completely broken off. She was informed an intimate acquaintance with a gentleman of great respectability, whose name we forbear to mention, because his conduct towards her has been in every respect honourable, and quite the reverse to that of the person with whom she had been before, and was subsequently acquainted. By this gentleman, Maria bore a child, which she named Thomas Henry. This child, who is a beautiful boy, survives his wretched mother and lives in the cottage with his grandfather, and he is liberally supported, as he has ever been, by his natural father, who intends, when at a proper age, to have him properly educated and make a future provision for him. It is due to Maria to state the following fact, because she shows that she possessed a fine sense of honourable feeling. When the gentleman, to whom we have alluded, first made overtures to her, she candidly told him of the connection which existed between her and Thomas Corder, and confessed, as she was at that time pregnant by him. Therefore, when those overtures were renewed, he could have no reason whatever to impeach her integrity. Yea, perhaps it was her urbanity of manners which induced him afterwards to seek her acquaintance. That a girl, having lost her character and her own self-esteem, should proceed in the path of error may not be deemed marvellous, especially when it is considered that her great fault, if it may be deemed so, was a playful and vivacious disposition, and a mind naturally sanguine, yea, perhaps ambitious. It has already appeared in evidence that words of anger had passed between William Corder and Maria relative to him having obtained clandestine possession of a £5 note, which directed to her in a letter, to assist her in the maintenance of her surviving child. Corder, on one occasion, begged that she should never name the circumstances again, adding, at the same time, in the hearing of her family, that as so long as he had a shilling neither she nor her child should know of want. As a variety of reports have been circulated relative to this intercepted note, for there was only one, we give the detailed particulars as received from the lips of a person who was a party connected to the investigation. Maria Marten, not having received remittance from a quarter from whence it had regularly come before, became uneasy and wrote to the gentleman and frankly expressed her disappointment and her necessities. In consequence to this communication, and more with a view to exculpate himself from a charge of remittances, then to recover the money, he instituted an inquiry at the post office, which led to the discovery that the identical note sent by him had passed through the hands of a person of the name of Corder. In consequence of the complaint made at her office, Miss Savage, the postmistress at Colchester, accompanied by a solicitor, went to Corder's mother in order to inquire whether any of the family knew anything about the note in question, and if they did, from what source it was obtained. It has already gone to the world that she or William Corder obtained change for the bill, but in order to involve the transaction in mystery, he had substituted the name of his brother James for his own. But it is only an act of justice to the prisoner to state that the fact is not so. When the solicitor and the postmistress arrived, William Corder was at home, but protested his entire ignorance of the matter, upon which the inquiry was made. A neighbour was sent for, who, understanding the nature of the investigation, went up to the church where John Corder, an elder brother to the prisoner, was engaged upon the parochial affairs, but he was unable to give any elucidation of the affair. Mr. P, the gentleman before alluded to, went over to Hadley Bank a day or two afterwards, when he had an interview with Mr. Baker, one of the firm, who asked him what was the Christian name of the Corder, who was extremely short-sighted. The gentleman said it was William, upon which the banker observed that he, or his son, had been led into an error, as he supposed that the presenter of the bill was the younger brother, whose name, upon inquiry, they found to be James, and they had endorsed the name of James Corder upon it accordingly. Mr. Baker, Jr., then observed to Mr. P that he was quite certain that he had taken it from one who had a defect in his eye, for he perfectly well recollected observing of this, Mr. Baker's father, after he had gone, how uncommonly short-sighted that young Corder is. On the day subsequent to this interview, our informant called upon James Corder and requested that he would speak to his brother William about it. He did so when the latter denied all knowledge of the transaction, but observed, as he was going to Hadley, when he would call and ascertain from the bankers themselves what they have to say about the matter, and he did go accordingly. When he went, it was extremely high and haughty at first, and inquired what Mr. Baker meant by raising ill-grounded suspicions against him, and, at the same time, declared that he had mistaken this person. Mr. Baker, Jr., replied that he was so fully confident that it was he, William Corder, was the person, that if necessity compelled him, he should not hesitate for a moment to make an oath of the fact, at the same time advising him to go to Colchester and get the matter settled as soon as possible. And it appeared he went direct from Hadley to Colchester on the same evening, and the matter was so far arranged. To screen himself, however, from disgrace and the consequences of a threatened prosecution for the offence, he compelled Maria to do an act which, afterwards, she extremely regretted, namely, to violate truth by acknowledging in contracting to her former communication that she had received the money previously to its being made. During the short interval between this transaction and her sudden departure, as it was then thought, from Polstead, the gentleman sent the remittance by an endorsing the half of a note, an acknowledgment of the receipt of which he required in Maria's handwriting before he dispatched the counterpart. So from then on, he just split the notes and sent her half of it, and then once she had got that, he would send her the other half. It does not exactly appear at what period a connection of close intimacy commenced between William Corder and the unhappy victim, but it must have been a very considerable period before she was deprived of existence. It was no secret, and he not only promised her marriage, but avowed the same intention more than once in public company. This infatuated girl appears not to have learnt wisdom in the school of experience and affliction, or why she should have relied upon the promises of the brother of her first seducer, because she could not be ignorant of his character and disposition. But so it was, and William Corder became the father of the third child. After her confinement, both she and her father frequently importuned Corder to perform his promise and rescue her from contempt and ruin by an honourable alliance. But this he almost always found an excuse to postpone, but never went so far as to deny his obligation to fulfil the contract. With regard to the child born by Maria, of which Corder was the father, there is connected another circumstance of mystery. The infant gradually sickened and died a short time before its ill-fated mother, and it is proper to state that those who daily witnessed its gradual decline considered that its death arose from natural causes. The clandestine manner in which the infant corpse was conveyed away from Maria Marten's cottage has given rise to numerous conjectures, as many will have it, well-founded suspicions that foul play had been used towards the babe. It appears very extraordinary that Corder should have taken the child away in a box in order, they said, to have it interred at Sudbury, and the only reason he is signed for it was, it does not appear very tenable, that the infant was born at that place. Since the discovery of the murder of the mother, strict inquiry has been made when it was ascertained beyond a doubt that the child never received Christian burial at Sudbury, or, as far as can be learned, at any other regular cemetery in the vicinity of Polstead. It should be observed, because it adds to the wonder, that when Corder thus conveyed the child away, Maria accompanied him and remained absent from the home 2 days. This circumstance appears natural. No inquiry was made relative to the child, and the affair, in all probability, would have been buried in eternal oblivion had it not been for the catastrophe which led to the investigation. In concluding this brief memoir of this truly unfortunate young woman, it is due to her state that, although her conduct cannot be justified, much might be said in palliation. Depraved as she was to the blamable extent, she was neither profligate nor abandoned. Upon the most rigid inquiry, it has been found that she was inflexibly honest in her conduct towards those whose protection and promises she relied. Censorious as the world is, and loath as mankind are to palliate the offences of others, we have heard very few of those whom this hapless girl, and were cognizant alike with her good and as well as her evil qualities, who do not regret her untimely end and exclaim that she deserved a far better fate. When a lesson does the irregular life and dreadful end of Maria Martens presents to our fair readers, if they do duly consider it in the light they ought, they will discover that virtue is a pearl of inestimable value, inasmuch as it is the possession of that which alone renders them amiable in the esteem of themselves as well as that of the world. So that's the conclusion of Maria. She has quite an eventful life before her murder. And there, the picture in front of you is the pair of Corder's pistols, which were talked about at the coroner's court. So that's where I'll leave it today. I hope you like this, and we'll continue our journey through Maria and William Corder's life at the next time. Thank you, give it a like, and we'll see you soon. Bye.